We have been tracking all the fallout all night long from that California massacre. The worst mass shooting since Newtown. It has stunned a country, our entire country, one more time.
Good evening, and as we come on the air this Sunday night, America is just now coming to grips with what unfolded here in the early morning hours here in Orlando. A massacre at a gay nightclub.
3 hours of terror overnight, multiple shootouts, hostages, a packed nightclub under siege. By the time it was all over, at least 50 people dead, even more injured tonight.
Morning, that peaceful protest was nearly over when the first shots rang out. In the end, 11 officers were shot. 5 of them were killed, police say, by 2 snipers.
This idea that America is somehow on the verge of collapse, this vision of violence and chaos everywhere, doesn't really jive with the experience of most people.
You know, there's been a lot of talk in this campaign about what America has lost. People who tell us that our way of life is being undermined by pernicious changes and dark forces beyond our control.
If you see something, tell us so we can look at it. In every single one of our cases, as we look back, somebody always sees something that they should have told us and they didn't.
The FBI is now investigating a series of attacks on Planned Parenthood offices around the country.
The FBI has released a new intelligence warning saying criminal or suspicious incidents will continue to be directed against reproductive health care providers, their staff, and facilities.
Hi, this message is for Danielle Kekoa. I hope I pronounced that correctly. My name is Kimberly Milka. I'm a special agent with the FBI here in Denver. And Ms. Kekoa, I understand that you might have some information that you'd like to share regarding Denver Bible Church. If that's accurate, would you please give me a call? Let me know when a good time to meet is. What we can easily do and get others to buy off on is the involvement with the pro-life protest.
Okay.
If there's any move to, again, harm people, like you said, I mean, we don't want to knock another Dr. Tiller on our hands.
Well, expect it. You can expect it.
We're getting a second caller now. They're advising in the parking lot somebody is shooting. Actually, we're getting several more calls now.
I just got shot at. He's behind Planned Parenthood. 6-1, we're getting shot at again.
Copy.
You moving towards me?
Investigators tonight say it could take a week to process the crime scene. The 5-hour siege was pure chaos.
We're pinned down. We're getting active gunfire. We're pinned down. We're getting active gunfire.
A gunman Friday taking aim at police and everyone else at a Colorado Springs Planned Parenthood building.
He fired around and it blew out the back window of my car.
People inside and out hiding anywhere they could.
I need them to make sure that this guy stays pinned down behind Planned Parenthood so he doesn't come around behind us.
As police tapped into closed-circuit cameras to track his movements.
He's coming out, he's got the AK.
He was aiming for my head.
The alleged gunman, 57-year-old Robert Deere of Hartselle, Colorado.
The FBI is investigating the recent Planned Parenthood shooting as a possible hit by an organized domestic terror group stationed out of Denver, Colorado. In 2015, the FBI launched a probe into Reverend Bob Enyart, fanatical pro-life pastor of Denver Bible Church, and his cult-like following that support what Enyart calls his shadow government. The Denver FBI Investigation Unit contacted Danielle Kekoa, North Glen, Colorado, and interviewed her only 3 days before the shooting. The FBI received Kekoa's name and contact information from Planned Parenthood, and the focus of the interview was Kekoa's membership in Denver Bible Church. FBI informant Danielle Kekoa and her husband, Curtis Kekoa, are former members of Denver Bible Church, which they describe as a cult. According to the Kekoas, the church pastor, Bob Enyart, is actually a Satanist and a serial killer cloaking his satanic criminal enterprise under the guise he is a pro-life Christian anti-abortion activist. The North Glen couple and their 6 children abruptly exited Enyart's church in fear after realizing it was a dangerous satanic cult by seeming pedophiles, drug addicts, fraudsters, con artists, and mind control victims. After leaving the cult, the Kekoas found themselves under perpetual siege by local law enforcement, child protective services, neighbors, and even family that have been communicating with the cult. The Kekoas publicly claim that Enyart is a sadistic serial killer that murdered JonBenet Ramsey in 1996, as well as being involved in many other high-profile crimes. Rapidly emerging evidence, which includes statements from a former candidate on the U.S. presidency ticket, reveals shocking evidence that supports claims by former Denver Bible Church members of extortion, blackmail, and mind control. Exclusive information obtained by Right Into Action indicates the Denver FBI was aware that something was going to occur. On November 24th, only 3 days before the shooting in Colorado Springs, Kimberly Milka of the Denver FBI interviewed Danielle Kekoa of North Glen, Colorado. Milka said she had received Kekoa's information from Planned Parenthood.
But we need to find somebody, I was wondering if you would be willing to talk to me about some of the stuff that you observed while a member of the Denver Bible Church.
Okay. So you're aware of some of their criminal actions, I take it?
I read quite a few things online about kind of the back and forth between the church, and I think they've also made some accusations against you and your husband, but that's why we like to talk to people to get the full story.
Okay. So how did you get a hold of my number? Like, what brought you upon contacting me?
I think you left a message for, was it the Planned Parenthood office?
Oh.
A couple months ago?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so they provided your name and number to me.
And I see that you're involved with civil rights and public corruption, you know, and that's really what we're dealing with here.
And again, this is, I'm trying to give you a good example of how we can combat the situation, or how I can combat this. We always say it's like eating an elephant. You just have to do it one bite at a time.
Okay.
It's so large.
Yeah.
And so we like to focus first on, what we can do as a federal violation.
Milka appeared to be concerned about violence occurring at an abortion facility.
What we can easily do and get others to buy off on is the involvement with the pro-life protest.
Okay.
If there's any move to, again, harm people, like you said, we don't want to knock another Dr. Tiller on our hands.
new details in our breaking news here on CNN. The slaying of a controversial abortion provider, George Tiller, in Kansas in broad daylight inside his own church. We are hearing from police at this hour, wrapping up a news conference just a short time ago. And at the scene, a church of all places, investigators are combing the lobby and talking to witnesses for clues.
He was a major target of anti-abortion groups, a man who never wavered in the face of protests, trials, and violence. In 1993, Dr. George Tiller was shot and wounded in both arms. In 1986, his clinic was bombed. He continued to be one of the few doctors who performed late-term abortions.
The 67-year-old doctor was shot in the foyer of Reformation Lutheran Church while serving as an usher. The shooter killed Tiller with one bullet.
Danielle Kekoa, the Colorado mother of 6, told the FBI's investigative unit to expect something to happen because the shot caller, Enyart, has been exposed.
Well, expect it. You can expect it. And because Bob Enyart has been found out, I mean, it's no coincidence that all hell has broken loose in Colorado alone since the discovery of him. The terrorist movement within the pro-life movement is obviously something you can work on. They're organizing and plotting the next event as we speak, and it's only a matter of time before it happens.
And Kekoa was right. 3 days later, on Black Friday, November 27, 2015, Robert Louis Deere went to the Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs and opened fire, killing 3 people, including a police officer.
3 people, including a police officer, were killed in this 5-hour-long shootout and standoff. 9 others, including 5 officers, were wounded.
As for a possible motive, law enforcement sources say after Deere surrendered Friday, he allegedly made rambling, hostile comments about Planned Parenthood. Officials say Deere appears to be a classic lone wolf.
And I picked the Planned Parenthood because it's murdering little babies.
Events leading up to the shooting suggest Deere may have been carrying out a mission that involved a larger group headed by Reverend Bob Enyart, pastor of Denver Bible Church.
As pro-lifers rally around the country, graphic and shocking new evidence of Planned Parenthood's alleged exploitation of aborted fetuses. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. What has been a very bad summer for Planned Parenthood is a lot worse tonight, as pro-life groups gathering across the nation demand an end to federal funding of the organization.
If we were doing like, 50 to 75 per specimen, that would be like 200, 300, right? And we'd be comfortable with that. But like, so it's like stuff like this, like we don't want to do like just a flat fee of like 200 and then it's like.
No, and I think the per item thing works a little better just because you can see how much we can get out of it.
That was a clip from a series of sting videos shot by an anti-abortion group that appear to reveal Planned Parenthood negotiating prices for fetal tissue. These controversial videos have prompted Congress to once again attempt to defund Planned Parenthood.
And for a long time, groups like the group behind this have been trying to get the government to defund Planned Parenthood. So there's a kind of interconnected web here, also apparently working in tandem with various politicians who were shown the videos ahead of time. This is roughly a 3-year effort that's been going on right now.
The federal probe into Reverend Bob Enyart of Denver Bible Church is extensive and involves his alleged foreknowledge of the Planned Parenthood mass shooting in Colorado Springs, carried out by Robert Louis Deere on November 27, 2015. The reasons and implications for federal authorities to have an interest in Denver Bible Church could be far-reaching. Evidence shows an FBI investigation and intervention is required for purposes of potentially solving unsolved murders and kidnappings, preventing future murders and kidnappings, as well as disrupting possible plans to subvert national security. Enyart is also being investigated for civil rights and public corruption violations that involve conspiracy on multiple levels.
They may one day regret their foray into abortion politics.
Witnesses, documents, and records suggest Enyart, who is also a radio talk show host and anti-abortion activist, is doing little more than posing as a pro-life pastor while executing an ongoing underground criminal operation in what he calls his shadow government.
Hi, I'm Pastor Bob Enyart of Denver Bible Church.
Bob Enyart is with Colorado Right to Life.
Christian radio broadcaster Bob Enyart.
National conservative activist Bob Enyart from KTOV and Colorado Right to Life is back with us again.
Bob Enyart is a convicted child abuser, Danielle Kekoa said, explaining how the abortion activism and child-focused protests are just a facade.
Bob Enyart's a convicted child abuser, types of things. I find out after the fact Bob's been divorced not once but twice, that he's a convicted child abuser not once but twice, which he at first played it off like it was just some biblical spanking, like you just lovingly swatted your son gently with, So he totally used that to make it sound like it was this loving spanking on his stepson. Well, we find out that it's actually his girlfriend's son. They've only been dating a couple weeks, and he thinks it's important to beat the crap out of her son and then marry her 6 days later. This is Cheryl, his third wife. And so we find out these things, we found that stuff out after the fact.
Was Robert Louis Deere blackmailed and extorted into committing murder at the Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs by Reverend Bob Enyart? An active investigation initiated by Denver FBI of Enyart and his followers shortly before the attack by Deere suggests that might be the case. Enyart is under federal investigation because formal complaints were filed against him by real-life victims for crimes he was committing. Facts and evidence show Enyart is guilty of plotting against the U.S. government. Danielle Kekoa told the FBI that Enyart is a satanic serial killer and shot caller who has ordered kidnappings and murders at an unimaginable scale.
This is what Bob does. Of course, as a shot caller, the best way to get away with things is to never have any direct connection to the person. That's the most obvious thing.
Kimberly Milka, special agent, Denver FBI, said shot caller accurately describes Enyart.
See, again, that to me is totally believable that there are shot callers, and I think
Yes.
it's important that you use that term.
Yes.
Evidence shows American Right to Life, formerly Colorado Right to Life, is a fraudulent front providing cover for homicidal, anti-government, and unconstitutional activities being staged out of Denver Bible Church by Reverend Bob Enyart. Brian Rohrbaugh, former candidate for Vice President of the United States, parent of Columbine massacre victim Daniel Rohrbaugh, founding president of American Right to Life and former member of Denver Bible Church, has been a very close business associate of Enyart since 1999. In 2008, America's Independent Party nominated Rohrbaugh to its first ever presidential ticket. He was the running mate of Alan Keyes from Maryland. Statements from Rohrbaugh are part of an FBI investigation of Robert Adolph Enyart and his Denver Bible Church that began in early November 2015. Never before heard audio of American Right to Life's founding president, Brian Rohrbaugh, may hold the key to why there was a shooting at the Colorado Springs Planned Parenthood on Friday, November 27, 2015. The statements capture Rohrbaugh discussing Enyart with Daniel Kekoa, North Glen, Colorado. Rohrbaugh described the real Bob Enyart during a recorded conversation with Kekoa.
This man has no place being in any role of leadership. In my opinion, he is perhaps the most dishonest and deceptive man I've ever met in my life.
Yes, we agree with you completely. And
he's a blatant liar, and his whole thing is to try to get people in to following and worshiping him.
Yes, that's why we really believe we didn't realize we were a part of a cult until we left.
Yeah, well, he's an evil guy.
Rohrbaugh's condemnation of Enyart in 2012 is very significant.
Lots of people who know exactly what he is and exactly what he isn't.
Right. Okay.
And don't waste your time looking for some Christian solution because you're not dealing with a Christian entity.
Okay, very true.
Rohrbaugh's statements regarding Enyart corroborates and confirm the Kekoa's assertions about Enyart.
The other thing is, you've got something that has Bob scared to death.
Yeah, that is true.
Of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't let up.
Okay.
I absolutely wouldn't let up.
All right.
Since the Planned Parenthood shooting on November 27, 2015, Enyart has made multiple radio appearances, including on the Hagman and Hagman Report, Steve Curtis, and his own program Bob Enyart Live, where he creates the false appearance that he, himself, speaks for Christians and unborn babies across the United States. That's not true at all. According to former members of Denver Bible Church, he simply poses as a pro-life Christian minister and only pretends to be utterly obsessed with saving unborn babies. This, they have told the FBI, is a cover for his satanic occulted practices that include kidnapping, rape, and murder. The Reverend Bob Enyart is attempting to mislead the public about the scope of the federal probe against him and his church.
If you'd like to join the conversation this morning with my guest, Pastor Bob Enyart, Denver Bible Church, and a spokesperson for Colorado Right to Life, a longtime pro-life activist in Colorado for decades now. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you first and foremost about we've been talking about this clinic shooting down in Colorado Springs, and we talked in the last hour about the disproportionate numbers of the number of babies that have been killed at Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers around the country over the years, tens of millions, and I would say well over 100 million, maybe 150 million by this point.
We need to have outrage because this is an affront to God who made us and to children. They're dismembering children. That's what this is all about. Is it wrong for a man to kidnap and eat a child? Is that absolutely right or wrong? Is it wrong for a man to violently rape a woman? You've got to stop criticizing the killing of unborn children. That is your cue to pull out the stops and tell everyone it's wrong to dismember children.
Could you add the babies that are supposed to be aborted that day? Could you add that to the list? Let's let it all come out. Truth. Seal the truth, huh? But also kill the babies. That's what Planned Parenthood does. Oh, I want the right. I want the truth to come out. There's a lot more to this than me to go silently into the grave. There's a lot of things that they don't want to be known. Planned Parenthood and my lawyer are in cahoots to shut me up, but they don't want the truth out.
The self-proclaimed Planned Parenthood shooter tells me he has no guilt. I talked with Robert Deere to ask, what about the victims? In his phone interview, Robert Deere calls those who died on Black Friday casualties of war. Do the names Garrett Swayze, Jennifer Markovsky, or Kier Stewart mean anything to you?
Yeah, those are victims.
Were their lives not important?
Well, in a war, there's going to be casualties. And are you going to name the 100 million babies that were killed that nobody talks about, nobody represents them?
But when the interrogators ask this murderer, what do you think of those Planned Parenthood videos where they're selling baby body parts?
Well,
what do you think of those? And he says, well, now they won't be doing that anymore.
I care about a lot of things. I care about innocent blood. The innocent blood of all those babies they're killing, and they're selling their baby parts. That's the Holocaust. That's an atrocity.
Many associates of Enyart were discussed during the FBI interview, including Steve Curtis, Brian Rohrbaugh, and Doug McBurney. On November 30, 2015, Bob Enyart and Doug McBurney co-hosted a radio program on KTOV.com where they discussed the shooting at Planned Parenthood.
Robert Deere is a pothead.
The on-air conversation regarding Robert Louis Deere and the Planned Parenthood shooting quickly became all about Enyart and McBurney personally.
We have the most effective list of the peer-reviewed science showing the horrific consequences of smoking pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
including
good.
the shooter at the Planned Parenthood abortion mill
Now,
in Colorado Springs.
I was not aware that he had made
he's
some...
a pothead. And so, Colorado, we have a schizomagnetophield field we've erected over the state that attracts...
They're pouring in over the borders.
Schizophrenics.
Faster than
paranoid
Syrians into Greece.
schizophrenics,
It's true.
Criminals.
Yeah.
Now, he is... This particular Robert Louis
Deere. We're talking about the shooter
Deere.
at Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs.
It is an extreme example of the kinds of freaks that are coming to Colorado by the thousands moving here.
Yeah.
So they could smoke pot, be losers, and just experience life in all its paranoid schizophrenic glory.
Yeah. I mean,
so he's another schizophrenic pothead whose brain has been fried by this harmless herb.
Yes, this medicine.
Enyart and McBurney's anxiety is likely based upon the fact they know their cover has been blown and Denver Bible Church is under investigation.
Now, NBC News was the outlet to report that this murderer mentioned the Planned Parenthood videos.
Well, now they didn't quite say it that way. It's a little more vague than that. A law enforcement official says the suspect made a comment about no more baby bumps. That's about as vague as it gets.
Good evening. We are learning much more tonight about the deadly shooting rampage in Colorado Springs, Colorado, one day after a gunman stormed a Planned Parenthood clinic and killed 3 people before surrendering. Today, new details emerged about the suspect, although his motive is still unclear.
Police say this is the man behind the bloodshed. A federal official telling NBC News Robert Deere appears to be mentally disturbed.
Law enforcement sources say when Robert Deere was taken into custody, he began ranting about President Obama, politics, abortions, and, quote, baby parts.
The 2 men began to rant about a huge plot against them they said was underway at nearly every major network.
At any rate,
I've been scanning, Bob, because obviously Narrated, Planned Parenthood, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, they are dying to tie this guy
to
some
the
pro-life
anti-abortion, pro-life movement.
They're just,
they want him to be an anti-abortion activist.
They're waiting with bated breath.
You are, like I am.
We are anti-abortion activists.
They want him to be one of us.
Yes.
So that
they want to find your number on his cell phone.
So that guilt by association, they could smear millions of pro-lifers.
Right.
Enyart has repeatedly lamented that the American media is unfairly blaming the entire Christian pro-life movement for the actions of the shooter, Robert Louis Deere. Following the attack, Enyart began appearing on air to equate himself with millions of pro-life Christians across the United States. He claims the entire pro-life movement is being blamed, including himself in the mix, as if he himself represents the entire Christian pro-life movement. That is simply not true.
How many pro-life leaders support killing abortionists?
Well, none. I know of none.
The answer is none.
I know all of them.
The entire pro-life movement condemns killing abortionists.
Yes.
We're the leader at American Right to Life. We're among the leaders, if not the leader, in teaching people why it's wrong to kill an abortion.
In fact, people could go to AmericanRightToLife.com and search
right now
vigilantism.
It's the top story.
Yeah.
It's the top story with a comment about, this weekend's murders.
Yeah.
It's wrong to smear guilt by association the entire pro-life movement, millions of pro-lifers, by this lunatic's crimes.
I mean, they're obviously trying to associate this guy with all of us who've ever spoken out against the killing of innocent people.
Right, because guilt by association, and not even association, just the smear.
Sure.
They're desperate for it.
Enyart does not speak for anybody or anything except for himself and Denver Bible Church.
The entire pro-life movement condemns using lethal violence at an abortion mill.
Right.
The entire movement.
What an amazing double standard in the media.
Federal investigators report there have been 9 attacks on reproductive health care facilities across the country, including cyber attacks, threats, and arsons. On July 19th, someone started a fire at the Planned Parenthood clinic in Aurora, Illinois. Then on August 1st in New Orleans, a vehicle was set on fire at a facility under construction. The incident started after an anti-abortion organization released undercover videos claiming Planned Parenthood has illegally profited from selling fetal tissue to researchers. Planned Parenthood denies selling fetal tissue and says the videos were deceptively edited. Now they're concerned about the safety of staff and patients.
The government and the media wants nothing more than to tie him to pro-lifers.
Yes.
That's what they want to do, even though he's condemned by the entire pro-life movement. I'm talking about people like you, Doug McBurney, like Denver Bible Church, pro-life Christians, that we cling to our guns and our religion.
Bitter clingers. Yeah.
Enyart is holding himself out as a spokesman for Christians and unborn children. He's not. He's under criminal investigation for criminal activity. Enyart's clever attempt to cloak himself with the name of Jesus Christ, biblical scripture, and receive cover from the Lord's followers is a deception easily recognized by those with eyes to see, ears to hear, and a mind to think.
Would you call yourself a Christian?
Oh, yeah. Of course I'm a Christian, because I actually did something to try to stop abortion, and not just talk and not just play the game.
Bob Enyart's real agenda is not abortion. Following the Planned Parenthood shooting, Bob Enyart appears on radio programs billed to discuss pro-life issues, but his real passions and agenda is not abortion or unborn babies. Enyart's real agenda is discrediting witnesses against him. Shortly after the Planned Parenthood attack on November 27, 2015, Danielle Kekoa contacted Special Agent Kimberly Milka of the Denver FBI Civil Rights and Public Corruption Unit for a follow-up interview.
Well, obviously, you saw the news about the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Obviously. Yes, and obviously this is connected. Obviously, Bob Enyart pulled this off, and I hope you guys see how obvious this is.
And how, and help us see the connection.
Okay. Well, let's say, first of all, I told you to expect it. Within 3 days it happened. Well, expect it. You can expect it. And because Bob Enyart has been found out. Now, how would I know that? Well, because Bob Enyart's been found out. Because Bob Enyart has been called out, and he knows the FBI is investigating him and his terrorist church. And he has no other choice but to order out these hits. He has an agenda, a political agenda, against Planned Parenthood. And as we talked about before, he has an agenda to, quote unquote, save the baby so he has more access to children, so he can kill them. Now, as extremist as this sounds, I also told you what would happen. I said when there is an assassination on a Planned Parenthood doctor or a Planned Parenthood facility, for instance, he will pretend and claim that they have no involvement. They will cite his abortion vigilante worksheet on American Right to Life, which is exactly what he did. He will claim that there is absolutely no connection because pro-lifers are the ones who save lives. They're not the ones who kill lives. And then, of course, we find out that Robert Louis Deere is an anti-abortion extremist, that he has a long 20-year history of doing the same exact type of tactics that Ken and Joe Scott, that Operation Rescue, putting glue on the locks at Planned Parenthood, and of course, you probably saw his outburst in court. For the babies, save the babies. This is all the rhetoric that comes directly from Bob Enyart's mouth.
Enyart faces increasing scrutiny for his alleged involvement in multiple high-profile murders, including JonBenet Ramsey, Jessica Ridgway, and Dylan Redwine.
With this Robert Louis Deere, it's a clear domestic terrorist. It's clear political motive, clear religious motive. For the babies. You know how many times we've heard that rhetoric come out of Bob Enyart's mouth? I can't even tell you. It was mind-numbing. In a cult, all they talked about was the babies and the dismemberment of the babies and the ripping the arms and legs off the babies and the unborn. It's all we talked about.
Tonight, we're continuing to talk to the accused Planned Parenthood gunman. It began with rambling conspiracy theories. Then he talked about the shooting at the Planned Parenthood clinic. Tonight he told me he was at war with the feds, so he picked the most evil spot he could think of for a battle, so he picked here. We also talked to him over the phone on Friday.
Yeah, trying to save babies, yeah. Because they were selling baby parts, too. Not only are they killing the babies, now they're selling baby parts.
And he has hundreds of agents. I mean, thousands of agents. There really is an unknown number of people who are willing and ready to take orders. I also told you that they're going to get the most mentally ill guy of the bunch to pull the trigger. You know, I mean, how would I know this? Am I a psychic? Or do I just know Bob Enyart that well?
Enyart's real agenda is delivering talking points about marijuana. He repeatedly mentions the debilitating effects of marijuana on a person in both grand studies conducted and published by his people. He incessantly rails on and on about the effects of marijuana on the brain. Enyart suddenly interjects his marijuana tirades into the abortion and pro-life discussions where they're out of place and unnecessary.
Undoubtedly, our schizophrenic magnet law of legalizing pot here in Colorado has attracted thousands of losers, people who are schizophrenic, paranoid, who come here because they want to be high officially. That's what they want to do for their career. And so we got another Steve, so many of the criminals that have torn apart this nation have been potheads.
Enyart's rants about marijuana are so obsessive and maniacal, they overshadow the actual billed topic until the host redirects him.
Robert Deere is a pothead.
Right. There seems to be something deeper, though, than even that. And I think that's a good point, that Colorado has made it a point to attract a certain element of people. But there seems to be something in the DNA of this state, the history of this state going back to the 1960s, at least, as we're tracking abortion back to legalization or legal status in this state and in this nation. There seems to be something inherently evil in the state of Colorado that just permeates people's brains here, that makes them make very, very stupid and bad decisions.
Enyart diagnosed the Colorado Springs shooter, Robert Louis Deere, as a, quote,
a pothead, a schizophrenic pothead. Paranoid. Loser. Mentally ill. Criminal. Schizophrenic. Robert Deere is a pothead.
Enyart has no access to medical records, psychological reports, blood test results, police statements, and the like of Robert Louis Deere. Yet, Enyart makes 100% conclusive statements about Deere based upon 0% evidence. Note: Bob Enyart has been accused of murdering JonBenet Ramsey in 1996. He behaved the same way after the child's murder. He published a detailed theory of the crime where he claims John Ramsey left the home, gathered DNA evidence from a public toilet or strip club, and then planted it at the crime scene. He claims the unidentified DNA found under JonBenet's fingernails was planted by John Ramsey. Former Denver Bible Church members say it's Bob Enyart's DNA. Enyart made 100% conclusive statements with 0% evidence in that case, too.
As a 6-year-old beauty queen, JonBenet was publicly sexualized by her parents, dressed provocatively and coached to saunter like a seductress. With that pretext, they went to work. John found a pair of unused shoes and made a footprint next to the body. He then took those shoes, the oversized underpants, and other damning evidence with him, like the rest of the roll of duct tape and the rest of the cord used to strangle her. He took that with him as he left the house, perhaps around 1:30 a.m. He went out to find a public restroom at a nightclub, a gas station, a diner, or preferably even a strip joint or an adult bookstore with video stalls. Somewhere along his journey, he dropped the damning evidence in the trash. At the restroom, he used the panties that Patsy had recently purchased to pick up a pubic hair, and then rubbed a stain onto the underpants. The unidentifiable DNA material under the fingernails was likewise collected by John, or by a few days of Normal's child play. That material did not come from an intruder, which would have suggested that JonBenet fought and struggled, getting the attention of her neighbors, but not her parents.
And so, again, just to reiterate too, I think some of the information that you provided may not have been viewed as credible at first because of the, I think a lot of the accusations you made against, and we're talking about Bob Enyart as the head of the church, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that he is a serial killer, and I think you've accused him of being involved in the JonBenet Ramsey homicide?
Correct. I would say that Bob Enyart's silence on this issue, his pre-Miranda silence, if you will, being accused of murder, being accused of being a satanic serial killer. And so, I mean, who am I? I'm just a housewife, right? I didn't go to Quantico. I didn't, who am I? But the fact that we've been saying the same thing, screaming bloody murder, it started off us accusing him of conspiring to take our children, to unjustly try to take our children and frame us for crimes we didn't do. After a years-long investigation, finding out his criminal record, learning what a fantastic liar he is and how ruthless and aggressive he is, to know what he's capable of, it made it very believable to know what he did to John and Patsy Ramsey. And if you read what he wrote on shadowgov.com,
and again, I don't want you to think that we don't think anything you have to say is not credible, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I think you do have information that could very well be credible. Again, and if you don't mind, future contact from me, just because you do have a wealth of information about a lot of topics.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can just start, again, eating that elephant one bite at a time,
mm-hmm.
and work our way through the gamut of what they may be doing, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
So,
Right into Action's investigative opinion. Bob Enyart is desperately attempting to discredit somebody in his mind's eye. Somebody has witnessed Enyart do something. He is going to accuse that witness of smoking marijuana. He is going to argue that because the witness smokes marijuana, their brain doesn't work right. He will accuse the witness of being mentally ill and/or delusional.
His DNA is at the JonBenet Ramsey murder scene. So this is all delusional, and I want my opinion of how it got this bad. But what happened was Curtis and Danielle were using drugs, and they were about to lose all of their friends over something as insignificant as marijuana.
Why don't you just go clear your name with the police?
It's a delusional question.
Okay, we're going to continue to accuse you of murder.
For you to post 1,000 times over that my DNA is there when you don't know what DNA was there and you don't know what my DNA is, it's delusional.
And how did the DNA get on JonBenet, the foreign male intruder that was not linked to any member in the family? There is a foreign DNA that's there.
Yes.
How did that DNA in 3 separate spots get on JonBenet?
Yes. It's delusional.
Then what about the lone pubic hair? How did that arrive on the blanket?
It could have come from a restroom.
It could have. Is this a theory you have, or are you just?
This is a theory trying to make sense of the facts of the case.
Do you know this for a fact?
No, I don't.
Then why do you put it on your website?
It's a theory of the case. There's 100 of such theories out there.
When Bob is being accused of something that he's not guilty of, he goes on the offensive with both barrels and publicly. And he likes to talk about how he's being, unfairly attacked, and you're not supposed to bear false witness, and on and on and on. All that is conspicuously missing.
It's delusional. It's delusional. But you guys need the delusion. The delusion.
Yeah, well, there may be more to this than meets the eye.
Yes, I'm sure there is.
So I wouldn't, the big thing is you don't need contact with any of them. They're scared of what you're doing.
Yeah.
That gives you great power.
Okay.
Enyart has never denied any of the accusations against him, including that he murdered JonBenet Ramsey.
They're out there trying to kidnap you and trying to kill you. Robert Enyart, serial killer, murdered JonBenet Ramsey. There, Bob Enyart, murdered JonBenetRamsey.com. Robert Enyart, serial killer, murdered JonBenet Ramsey. Bob Enyart, murdered JonBenetRamsey.com. His DNA is at the JonBenet Ramsey murder scene.
Right into Action is continuing to investigate.